What is going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the K-Bar put out by Harambe Systems, and specifically I'll be talking about their K-Bar bundle, which is really their flagship product on their website. Which, if you guys are new or missed past videos, I've gone through a deep dive already into these resistance band bar footplate systems, covering X3, cheaper alternatives, and even some Harambe products already. I recently just reviewed their T-Bar bundle first. I've reviewed their footplate independently, did a whole video talking about their resistance bands. So I actually will link all those things down in the description box, including the playlist that covers all these types of systems if you guys want to get caught up. So I will try and make this video pretty much an all-encompassing review of their brand and just all their products in general, what I've tried thus far. If you guys do want to save any money off Harambe, got a great discount code for you, saves you 10% off anything from their website using the promo code Sliding Bench Trainer. But as always, I will give you guys my honest review about how I personally feel about these. Granted, some things might change in the future. I'll let you guys know. And certainly, of course, as always, let me know your comments down below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys are seeing based on these products or similar related bandboard bar footplate setups. Now, the K-Bar bundle comes with everything you guys are seeing here. Everything Harambe can be bought separately, but really the whole system is meant to be used in conjunction with all the moving parts here you're seeing. So, of course, you got the K-Bar. It comes with the K-rods. They're black ropes, but they sell other ropes. The Harambe footplate. This is the camel version. This was actually the first thing I reviewed from them a while back. They make a black one. I believe the camel one's actually sold out. If you do check out the K-Bar bundle, they have a block that is kind of multi-purpose for a variety of exercises. I'll kind of show some of those here in this video. And then also it comes with these 4 straps you guys are seeing here. Now, getting into the K-Bar itself, it is the big brother to the T-Bar, which is the travel version of their bar. And even compared to X3, which I'll get to that a little bit later in the video, compared to the X3 long bar, which is not their standard bar, it is also much longer than that one. Now, what separates the Harambe bar from other resistance band bars that are out there really is in its construction. This thing is made out of a very durable stainless steel. It feels very heavy, so much so that even when you're doing basic resistance band stuff, you almost feel like you're doing some weight stuff as well because how heavy the bar feels. The knurling is kind of, I would say, somewhat moderate. It's good. It's not like too thick. I would say the X3 bar knurling feels a little bit thicker. I think that's kind of personal preference, what you prefer. Each side rotates independently of each other, which is a standout compared to, again, other systems such as X3, other kind of knockoff bars that are similar. And the other big thing, of course, with Harambe is it utilizes the Sling system, which I'll get into that later on, but this is kind of a pro and con depending how you want to look at it. But the K-Bar comes with the K-rods, so these are a bit longer than the T-rods that come with it, and it comes with these stock black ropes. But again, with Harambe, you can kind of customize this. You can get longer and shorter ropes. And so, for instance, here are the yellow ropes, which are a bit longer, and you can also buy upgrades such as the spacers, which further increases the versatility in ways you can progress or degress the intensity on your resistance bands and exercises. And it should probably go without saying, the K-Bar can handle a lot of weight, probably way more than you actually be able to throw at it when you're talking resistance bands. I mentioned this in a previous video. Harambe actually makes their blue Kong band, which I think probably is the strongest resistance band on the market. Again, not getting into too much about how their bands are constructed differently, but their bands are definitely harder, a little more stiffer. So, and they're also shorter in diameter. They're 38 inches versus 41 inches. And when you put all that together, when you're doing these exercises, one of the common things that people talk about, because the independently rotated sides, is that everything just feels very smooth, almost similar to what a barbell free weight experience might feel like, conversely to using, say, resistance bands. Getting into the kind of the slings and kind of how that works, I do like how for certain exercises, like say for instance bicep curls, when I'm doing bicep curls, the actual bands are not rubbing so close to my wrist. Conversely, let's say with the X3, with the hook system, I notice that sometimes the bands like to kind of touch the, kind of like my knuckles when I'm doing things like bicep curls or other exercises. Not a huge thing, but the Sling does have a benefit that it makes the bands kind of hang a little bit lower. And that can be good or bad depending on the various exercises we're talking about here, because for some things you do want it super close and tight to your body. And like I said, the Harambe bands actually are set and manufactured for 38 inches. So you're already kind of starting, you know, a little more kind of closeness and tightness to your body at the start of every exercise. And maybe that was by design in the sense that you are kind of starting a bit lower with the slings. I don't think that's necessarily the case. They probably did design for the fact that you are already just starting out some extra tension regardless of how the Sling system was set up. Not to mention, you can buy shorter ropes, you can buy longer ropes, so you can adjust this however you would like it. I did say on my T-Bar review, one of the things I didn't like with their T-Bar is that for certain things like chest presses, even overhead presses, The slings like to kind of pull in a little bit, so they can kind of touch your wrist for some of those things. So that's definitely not a problem with the K-Bar. In fact, the owner Khaled said that's why he kind of prefers using the K-Bar as his kind of main kind of workhorse bar system. And most people I talk to who are using Harambe, they're pretty much all using, or most of them are using, the K-Bar bundle, the K-Bar setup that goes alongside their K-Bar footplate, or their wider base footplate, I should say. One of the negatives is, since the bands are 38 inches, getting into things like I can do my back squats, I really do like using with these barbells. And I will say with Harambe, given that it is actually a longer barbell, my back squats feel really good. For a lot of people that have a hard time getting into that back squat, that having these bands already at 38 inches makes it increasingly kind of hard to get into, say, the front squat position or back squat. So for those people, I would just say start with a lighter band. And I would say in general, that's one of the humbling factors about the Harambe system, because their bands are built much stiffer, really good quality, again, the 38 inches. Their white and their yellow looks pretty small, but honestly, for a lot of exercises, to me, this is kind of the sweet spot band. So don't let these sizes fool you on how strong they can be. But like I was saying, if legs is an issue setting up and getting into, they have extension ropes you guys can take advantage of. You guys are seeing the Vector Athletic Squat Belt I recently reviewed that I think, honestly, 9 times out of 10, that's what I'm gonna be using a lot of my resistance band leg days for. So I will link that review up here, also down below, if you guys wanna check that out. But even with the Harambe bands, especially being at the 38 inches, I felt like that was a really nice tension sweet spot for my lower body when I start incorporating their bands with a squat belt. Now I'm gonna get into comparing the Harambe systems to the X3. I can make a more dedicated specific video on this if you guys are curious on my own personal thoughts in more detail. But since I've tried the vast array of the Harambe products, I think all of them at this point, and of course I've used the X3 bar in their system, I thought it's worth comparing the flagship Harambe Systems product to the X3 bar system product, which is their baseline X3. Granted, you can also get their longer bar, but you can't get their longer bar unless you already have the regular bar. I know that's a point of contention for many people, understandably. But if I'm comparing the K-Bar, which is again the standard Harambe Systems product, to the X3, of course you can see it pretty much dwarfs that when you compare that. Much longer bar to start. And X3 doesn't, basically essentially says that they don't want you to have a longer bar, even though they do sell one. They prefer to use this one for a variety of their exercises. What I will say right away, you can tell, is this thing is much heavier compared to this. And this thing is much longer, so it kind of makes sense. But even their T-bar feels much heavier than this. It doesn't feel light. The X3 bar does not necessarily feel flimsy in that regard. But the big couple differences are the X3 bar has a core that's kind of united with the both ends of it, so they spin with each other. Conversely to the K-Bar, like I said, it has even their T-Bar. They rotate interchangeably or independently of each other on each side. The knurling, I would say, is one thing that stands out to me when I hold the X3 bar. It is a kind of more aggressive knurling. I personally kind of prefer that. The Harambe is a little bit lighter with the knurling, still definitely there, still a good functional knurling. The bar quality, this thing being solid stainless steel, this I believe is in aluminum. I think this is still gonna hold up and be fine in the long term. But no question, this is a much denser, higher quality, more expensive build for sure. A little bit thicker diameter in the X3 that you can definitely feel and notice compared to the K-Bar. The biggest and most obvious difference is the hook-based setup on the X3 compared to the Sling system. And this is where I want to segue into the con section of the Harambe systems. And in my opinion, this is kind of somewhat subjective. It's a potential con because ironically, the biggest con is also its biggest pro, depending on what you want to get out of it and your own personal goals and how you just enjoy using resistance bands with a barbell. When I first saw the Harambe come up, I wasn't really sure, honestly right away, I'm like, I don't think I really would like it as much. And I still don't really know my full opinions on it. It might change in the future about using a sling versus say the basic hook setup that X3 notoriously kind of popularized. And that's because when I first started using the X3, what I personally did love was that using resistance band in the past, I didn't like the cumbersome action of using carabiner clips onto a barbell or attaching loop bands at certain positions. I like the fact that I could quickly throw bands on a barbell and just start doing workouts and exercises. And then seeing the Harambe system and their sling setup, which is used across the board for their handles to the T-bar, I wasn't sure if I'd really like it. And it's not that complicated, right? You can see how easy it is to take the sling on and off, but sometimes what happens is either the rope is on a certain way and I gotta fiddle with it to kind of match with the other side, or sometimes I actually just nudge the rope a certain way and it kind of flies off. And you guys are seeing throughout the video just kind of realistically how long it takes me to set up various exercises. So it does definitely slow down the pacing of the workout. But with that out of the way, kind of getting into the pros, and I'll start with the Sling system. The pro for a lot of people using the Sling is that since you have the Sling and also the independently rotating sides, it does make exercises feel, again, very fluid and smooth. Granted, I won't say it's a dramatic difference. I would say personally, saying how the X3 feels in my hand, I think that's my personal opinion on that. The opening of the spacer on the Sling does allow, I think, for a little more room and real estate for putting on either more bands or thicker bands. Then of course, like I've been saying, the ways you can customize various lengths that suit your particular preferences, either across the board or on certain exercises with different rope sizes, not to mention the spacers. These are things you can kind of add progressively as you go to kind of increase the resistance or make things harder as the rope gets tighter and closer to the barbell, making the band tension a little bit harder. And then the other huge pro with the Harambe system is it takes this resistance band training to another level beyond any other system that's out there. So they have their app system, which I believe is just launched. They had a previous one, but I think they kind of redid it, that you guys are seeing some clips here in the background. They have tons of free programs, tons of ways to track it. You can customize it in a million different ways. And that's what's really excellent. I think that's the giant selling point for a lot of people if you're thinking about the Harambe system. If you're somebody who loves tracking workouts, loves getting meticulous on progressive overload, and you are really into these types of setups, especially if this might be maybe like your sole form resistance training, you would love the Harambe. You would love the way you can kind of progressively increase the intensity, increase the variety a little bit throughout exercises. You also, like I said, have that vast array of options to you in exercises as far as their library, also the programs on the Harambe app that I think you guys would really like. Granted, the thing does cost, I believe it was $199 a month or $19.99 for a year. And this is what's gonna lead me into my overall summary of the Harambe systems in general, but also this K-bar. I would say if you are somebody who's all in, you love resistance bands, you love using a barbell with a foot plate and some bands, loop style bands, and you're looking for the best build product that's out there, the one that's gonna give you the most variations, also has the best quality bands in my opinion. Now granted, there is some personal preference, and if you like, I personally do like 41 inches for a number of things, but if you like the best built bands as far as quality, the stiffness they give off, the longevity, how they're gonna last, not to mention their foot plate, which is again, over-engineered, very heavy, has different channels under here, different options you can do, especially with their block and various exercises. This would probably be the system for you, especially if you're thinking like this wants to be like your standalone system of what you're gonna be using. But if you're in that camp where you like to kind of do a variety of things in your workout, you like to kind of superset between different things, you're not meticulously tracking every single thing, nor do you really worry about so much as far as like increasing the number of reps or exact number of intensities on, say, resistance bands, you might probably not be as into all the different bells and whistles you guys can do with this thing. And also just very simply, if you just basically prefer the hook versus the sling, I think that would be probably the biggest thing for most people. That'd be the selling point. And there's many of you guys out there just in that practical crowd. They're like, you know, I do not need the most expensive thing. I'm only gonna use these things once in a while. I wanna kind of get my feet wet a little bit. There are plenty of these very inexpensive knockoff bars that are not gonna last long, but if you're just using them at relatively lighter weight for doing things like, again, curls, overhead presses, maybe some light back stuff or isolated movements, these things are probably fine. But if you do want the top of the tier, best built bar resistance band foot plate system, I would say look no further than Harambe. Let me know your questions, comments, and feedback down below in the description box, and I will see you on the next video. Thank you.